This week on Rebuilding Me, part 2 of my interview with one of my best friends on the planet, Neil Gillis. You went through so many different stages, right? You went through that whole period of high school where, and it's awkward, man. I mean, I'm the first to admit, like, I was not the coolest kid, especially in elementary school and growing up, like getting picked on and stuff like that, right? Yeah. So I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure out where I fit. Choir, actually meeting you guys and getting involved in choir was really where I went, oh, wow, okay, cool. Mm-hmm. This is stuff that I know I wanted to do when I was a kid, and oh my gosh, it's amazing. So, yeah. But everything else around it, you know, as you know, similar to your story, that I was going through some tough stuff in high school. In fact, the time that we all kind of started getting to know each other, and you know this, I mean, it's not a secret, but you know, dad attempting suicide and parents getting divorced, and but you went through some of that stuff so young, especially with the divorce piece. So so you've had these, like, you know, these massive swings in just life experience, and then going from immediately from high school to ta-da, you're a dad, and now you're a family man. Surprise. And then military career, and then Department of Corrections, and now, you know, kind of settling in a little bit in the later stages in life. But what were some of the times that you remember were just like the tough stuff that you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know how you're supposed to navigate this. What the hell is going on?
Well, I think a lot of you know, it's funny because a lot of people would think that having a child at 19 would be like a be-all, end-all. And for me, it was, Amy and I have actually had this discussion where we've thought back on ourselves and been like, how did we do it? Like, how did two 19-year-old kids, you know, have a newborn and, you know, a military career and, you know, driving and doing all this kind of stuff and make it all work? And I think that was... it's not really a mystery that I look back on it. At the time, it was like, we just are like, wow, we were really good, you know, together. And I think that was a big strength, you know, for each other. But two things for me, I know are one of them. One of them is I was rooted in the gospel of the Lord. You know, I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and you know, being your Mormon.
What? No, I'm just
being right. And that, you know, that has always been a rock for me because I was raised Catholic. I was a altar boy, and I was smitten by the whole, you know, pomp and circumstance, you know, the church. And then you know, when I met Amy, and I just knew that what I was doing was right as far as that conversion. And then a big thing for me, though, when I was little, I think right around the time the divorce happened, I'd say maybe a year later, the television show Star Trek was huge for me because it was kind of an escape for that. I had a Mego bridge play set, and I used to, you know, with the little figures, and I used to mimic what was going on, you know, on the TV. And
did you really?
Star Trek was in syndication at the time. This was, you know,
of course,
80, whatever it was, so mid 70s, and so you could see it all the time, and so it gave me that escape, and that it was like a coping mechanism, really, because it allowed me to go somewhere where
no man had gone before.
Yeah, ready to go. Hey, all right.
Hey, and, I watched a couple episodes,
and that stuck with me to help me through hard times, really all the way until I'd say January, really, of this year. You know, not that I abandoned it, but I just didn't take it as seriously or use it as a mechanism like I did for all those years.
Right.
And I just kind of, you know, toned back the fandom a lot, and you know, still have all the knowledge and you know, all of that, but I just don't really take it as seriously. But I'd say, so, you know, religion and Star Trek, which some people mix together, it's really got me through a lot of those times that I just really wasn't doing well.
That is I'll tell you that one of the things that I remember so vividly, like it was yesterday. It's one of the very few memories that's just like crystal clear when I go back to that whole time of like high school and all that, because so much of it is so foggy for me. We were in your living room, one of the very first times that we really got together, and we were maybe starting to think about messing around with music, and asking your dad if we could borrow his keyboard, his Yamaha DS55.
I love that, man.
And I cannot thank you enough. So Ross, 2 years ago, shows up. We get together every month for Arby's. It was one of the things that we did in high school. So I'm going to bounce around a little bit, but that's okay.
No problem.
Just follow the bouncing ball. In high school, we'd get together and go to Arby's every single week. We were all part of the stage crew to put together concerts and all that stuff. And we got paid our little 25 cents an hour or whatever it was.
Yeah, whatever it was.
Hour. So we wound up with like $7. But what could you do with $7? You could go buy Arby's once a week. It was awesome.
That's right.
So we did. It was like every Wednesday or Thursday, I think, we used to do it. And we still do it to this day. But 2 years ago, at one of the Arby's meetings that we still have 30 years later, he brings the old DS55 keyboard out from his trunk and says, dude, it's yours. I was like, no, dude, you cannot do this right now. Seriously.
No one better deserving.
Blown away, man. I still have it. I have that one. I have the DS7. I have the, those two. Just
there's
unreal,
a lot of things that those older keyboards can do that some of the newer ones
new ones can't.
They just can't.
There's some of those sounds that they're forever 80s, and you can't play Richard Marx without pulling up that electric piano the way that it sounded back then. But
you owe me a song, man.
One of the things so all that to say, that was like the setup for that was we were coming to your house. We were starting to think about putting together a band. And who could play what? Nobody could play anything. We couldn't write.
Yeah, right.
We didn't we had no talent in that area, but you pulled down from I think it was on the bookshelf. I could be wrong. It was either on the bookshelf or maybe it was already out on a table. But you had one of the books that has like all of the blueprints for every starship up to that point, whatever that was, 85, I think. 86.
Yep.
And I was like in awe. I couldn't understand like how somebody put this all together and that it was real, because it made it real. I had watched. I grew up. My mom was a Trekkie. She used to watch Star Trek every Saturday, and anytime that it was on TV. So I grew up with that too. But I didn't really dive into it the way that you did, and I was just blown away. I thought, oh my gosh, this is so good. We could build a starship. We've got the we could do it.
Right here,
So.
Figure out, man, the warp drive part of it, and let me know.
Now that, and I'll be honest, you are the reason, like, I still am kind of into Star Trek. And I dug, like, it took a little while, but I dug Next Gen. When not the convention, but the Arizona Science Center, I think, had a Star Trek display at one point. So they had the bridge set up and the and Captain Kirk's chair from the original series, and just it was really, really cool. I actually got a kick out of checking it out. So you're actually the main, honestly. I mean, besides my mom watching the original series, you're like one of the reasons I even like got into Star Trek at all. But well, not to the degree that you did. So you even had, you got to at least tell this story. We're gonna waste so much time, but I don't care. Tell the story about the prop that you built back in high school, not any of the current stuff, but back in high school, you had what I thought legitimately was one of the phasers from the show.
Right. Yeah. So the Star Trek technical manual, now that was one that was based off of the original series. There was a black cover book, has the United Federation of Planets seal on it. And inside of it gives, pretty much the entire layout of the original series. Talks about all the ships that were in there, the articles of the Federation. It gives, just everything. And part of it was uniforms, gives the patterns. I actually had a uniform top made from the pattern in that book.
From the show.
There was a seamstress that I knew in the church, and she looked at it and she's like, yeah, easy. I can do this. And so she made me a top from the pattern in that book. And so you turn a few more pages and there are plans for the props, phasers, communicator, tricorder, the whole deal. So my dad was a very talented woodworker and had taught me a lot of those skills about that. And so I was able to just take those plans, copy the page, and transfer all those plans onto wood blocks. And I just manufactured a genuine phaser from the manual. And I would Halloween at school, I would come as a Starfleet officer, and I would have all that, and it just worked out. But I was so engrossed in the show, and it's just hope for the future. And again, in my dark world, that hope was what I needed, and helped me cope with that. But
a great outlet. It really,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And you hear stories about that all the time. All the documentaries
Sure.
say that over and over again. It's repeated and repeated and repeated that that show for so many people has been like therapeutic and
Sure.
just a source of inspiration and just some kind of purpose, truly life purpose, which I know you didn't take it to that extreme, but it did. It helped you through those times. That's exciting, man. That's cool stuff. And you still to this day, there's a picture or two of you and Amy in your next gen uniforms, which is just blows me away. It's so cool.
Yeah, we would go to comic book conventions, dressed as Darth Vader officers, or like I went as a Borg one year. I made a Borg suit, and
that
I
was
would go
cool.
around assimilating people, and people want to take pictures all the time of you. So it just became a real fun thing to do after that.
You make a fantastic Borg. What did she say?
Yeah, very uncomfortable suit though.
Yeah, I bet. So that was at least one of the things that helped carry you through some of that stuff as a young man and young adulthood. And I agree with you, by the way, 100%. So it's one of the other points in my life besides my own, marriage and children, but standing up for you at your wedding was incredible, man. And I just so everybody knows, Ross is the kind of guy. So in the Mormon church, they wouldn't allow them to get married in the temple if there were non-Mormons standing up for them in their ceremony, is the way that I remember it. Now I could be totally wrong, but
no, that's not true at all. But,
okay. So all I remember is they shoot us out to the gym. I thought was an issue.
Well, yeah, we had our wedding in the gym because Amy and I we had chosen to get married civilly at that time.
Oh, okay.
And so whenever you would marry in the church outside of the temple, you would do it at the actual meeting house. So their gym, culture hall, whatever they call it, we had our wedding ceremony there. We did our temple sealing later. But,
gotcha. Okay.
At the time, when we were 19 years old, and that was just how
I took it so personally, dude. I just thought they didn't want some greasy Italian like messing up their carpet or whatever.
Believe me, when it comes to temple weddings, when you go into the actual temple ceremony, there are members of the church not worthy meant to be there. So it's a whole process to get a temple recommend. So I mean, it's a big deal. And so at the time we just didn't have one. It just didn't work out. And so we got married civilly at the meeting house, and it was cool. That's where all of you guys were able to to be there as a part of that. And
you for mine.
Absolutely.
And you didn't have to become a Guido. It was amazing.
No.
So same thing.
But I was ready.
Hey, you.
I'm telling you right now, man. I'd have taken the steps if I had to.
Listen, we just so everybody know, we upset my ex-wife so badly at my reception with look, man, you get a bunch of 20, 21, 22-year-old guys in a room together, get a little liquor in us. There's going to be some shared Twinkies and some other
what
stuff
did you expect?
What do you want? What do you want? So
you had to have known the world that she was stepping into, man. So,
exactly.
But hey, you know what? Her loss.
So I think that, as a life lesson for me, just so that you know, because there were times in my life that I was trying to do the right thing and not rock the boat and all that stuff, right? And that's important, right? To make sure that if you're married, that your wife is 100% confident in the relationship and, doing whatever you need to do to care for that. And that's important. But at the end of the day, it costs me time with you, Aaron, KO, that whole group of folks that I didn't want to miss out on any of that. We had so many good times. The whole group, not just like one or two of us would hang out all the time. The entire group of people, like for 3, 4, 5 years straight.
Oh, yeah.
We were inseparable as a group. You could not get us apart. So to lose that time with you was something that I was, it hurt. It was a big chunk of my life that was just gone. And regardless, fast forward 20 years and, I reach out and you're right there. You're like, hey, man, welcome back.
Yeah.
And that 20 years went by.
That's the mark of true friendship, where you can be absent from each other's lives for decades, and you come back, you meet up again, you live in the same town, same state, whatever, and you pick up as if you never left. And really, technology these days, FaceTime, for instance, allows you to see that person still, and no matter where they live, as if you're right there with them.
Like you're right here in the studio.
There you go.
Yeah,
even if you lived in another state and I lived here and Aaron lived in Alaska somewhere or whatever, we could all go to an Arby's in our states, turn on FaceTime,
it's true.
Three-way it,
we
and
could do
have
it.
our Arby's meet.
That's a really good point.
We were right there, next to each other.
That's a really good point.
Yep.
But we don't do that.
Yep.
So what we do every month. Aaron and I both landed in Phoenix after bouncing around a little bit and all that stuff. There's an Arby's halfway between Tucson and Phoenix, so we schedule it and we get together and we make that time and we put that aside, and it's very important. And our spouses know and our families know, like friends know. Yeah. Nope, it's Arby's with the guys. Like anybody that I talk to, if I say it's Arby's with the guys night, they know, oh, okay, not a problem.
See ya.
They're good.
That's it. Done.
So that's what we're doing. We're going to go eat some Arby's and get fat and happy. With being an adult, trying to navigate that, military, Department of Corrections, those were, and I know you, so I know that those were jobs that were, they tested you, right?
Sure.
I'm wondering, like, what was it that just kind of kept pushing you forward, kept you and Amy together? Because, look, you guys are at 25 years now, right? 28 years of marriage. Mm-hmm. That's incredible, dude. I mean, I didn't, I wasn't that lucky, and made a ton of mistakes. And I'm sure you guys made mistakes. It's not like you guys were perfect, but what are some of the things that worked for you? Just trying to focus on that and keep moving forward and keep everything together.
My son was number one.
Right.
Rob was probably, no, probably about it. It was definitely the motivating factor that allowed ourselves to fight, to keep building the marriage. Amy and I, tongue-in-cheek sort of joke, but in a serious way, that we've built a marital empire. And there's no arrogance involved in that. It's just simple truth that her and I were high school sweethearts and were faced opposition from day one.
Oh, yeah.
We had friends in high school who believed, oh, you guys are just rebounding. You're not going to make it. You should break up now, blah, blah, blah. And here we are 28 years later, and that didn't happen because it was worth the fight. And that's the thing. Marriage is work. It is work. When people think they can cruise through it, you're lying. It is work.
Right. But
you have to have reasons to work for it. And our son was it, and unfortunately, Amy and I weren't able to have any more children after him. And so we focused on him and made his life the best we could. Make mistakes? Yes. Was I an angry dad? Yes. Was I probably not the best dad? Very likely. But, he's attending the University of Arizona. He has, medical ambitions and he has a career and, a wonderful girlfriend. And so those type of things, you never know what kind of a parent you are until your kids are grown. Right. They will never tell you, rarely, when they're teenagers or younger, that you're an awesome parent. They're just not going to do that.
They're not going to have it. Yeah.
But you will know that later on. And I have been blessed. But I can look at him now and his career and the struggles that he's gone through and can say with confidence, at least I did that right. And, I have a good marriage. Okay, there's something else I did right. And, and I was able to have a good military career and a even better correctional one. Okay, so there's three things. Woohoo! And now, I care for my dad. My dad is, as of 2019, he's 87 years old.
Wow.
And I, care for him, at least 3 times a week. And he, but he's still walking. He's still smart. He's still, works with a computer tablet and cool. Can operate a cable box. And, he's still sharp upstairs. He may not have the mobility that he would like to have, but he has family members that love him, and that is the motivating factor that's kept me going now, because I feel in my life that it's my turn to care for him the way that he cared for me.
Right.
And when he didn't have to.
We all get that. Yeah, most of us get that opportunity. So, yeah. And I think we understand that that's what comes with it. But you do. You have such amazing focus, man, and you just keep you just keep rocking, man. Spinning plates, you got them all going.
Yeah,
I don't even know if anybody understands that reference anymore, because there's no such thing as plate spinners these days.
It's quite the feat, man,
it is
to do that.
So, what do you remember? Best of your recollection. You don't have to make anything up, but I know we've talked about it a little bit. Some of the dark times, right? The times where you're doubting yourself, kind of just, what the hell am I doing? Tell me about that a little bit. What were some of those times like?
Well, I was pretty rock solid probably through the military career. I had some times when I was away from the family. Desert Storm, I was actually stationed at Fort Irwin, California. I was part of the training cadre that trained National Guards and Army Reserve to go overseas to Kuwait and Saudi Arabia and all that. So I was fortunate that I never actually went across the pond to that area. But we were responsible for training those who will, and I was part of the opposing force for a while, and we would go in and wreak some havoc in their camp and all that. But there were times when I was away from the family for a long time when it was really hard. It was a very difficult separation, because I was 21 years old, and I was thrown into this separation thing where I had a brand new wife and a brand new baby, and all of a sudden I had to leave them for who knows how long, and when you're young like that, your brain doesn't process it very well,
right?
But I stuck it out, and things worked out. Corrections, not quite as hard, but by the end of it, for me, right around, I'd say about a year ago, I think was when it was the worst, right? Because I retired in March of 2018.
Right.
And, but in January of that year, I was really bad. I was in a really bad place to where, I just didn't know what was going on. I was in a job that I just couldn't stand. I was separated from everything. I hated everyone and everything. I was really mean to a lot of people. I was suicidal for a while in January. I remember having it planned out. I knew where I was going to do it, how I was going to do it. I had it so well planned out that you would have never found the weapon. People would have thought, man, it was a murder. Wow. I put that much thought into it. And then about the next month or so, I just, something snapped me out of it. I don't really remember exactly what it was, but I just suddenly didn't feel like that anymore. And I had a father to take care of. I had a son who wouldn't understand, a wife who certainly wouldn't get it,
right?
And of course friends who would always scratch their head at that. And really, I do believe that suicide transfers your pain to other people, but I also disagree that suicide is the weak way out. You always hear that. I think anyone who says that does not understand depression. They think they know what it's about. Snap out of it, man. You're okay. No, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
I was fortunate that something just made me not go that far, and I'll always credit Heavenly Father for that. I'm sure that God played some kind of an intervention with me. He had to have, because there is no way that I could have gone from where I was to where I am without some type of divine intervention. Whether you're religious or not, whether people out there may believe or not, that's fine. I do, and something happened, and I just can't explain it, so I won't. I'll just chalk it up to that was His will, and I just run with it, and I'm in a better place, a lot better place now because of it.
Look, man, we again, we haven't really gone super deep on some of this stuff, and so it's crazy that we're doing this for one of the first times on camera, and that was not the goal, certainly, but
I'm fine with it, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you being so transparent, man, because this is as you know, when I was going through the divorce and not seeing the kids and getting behind on child support and abusing alcohol and stuff, I grabbed a pistol. I was ready to rock and roll, man.
Yep.
And same thing. I mean, I 1000% believe it's God or whatever you want to call it, the universe or higher power, etc. But absolutely intervened through the SWAT team showing up at my house the next morning, which was fantastic. But whatever it takes, right?
Make it a show.
But yeah, I don't. I've had people still to this day, because that part, that chapter of my life is still not completely written. It's not finished. So there's still even doctors that have looked at me and said, you just got to get over it. And I'm like, okay, great. Show me how.
If only it was that easy.
Where's the book? Right? Show me the book.
Yeah, show me.
So, because it's not, but it is this. It's exactly this. It's being a little bit vulnerable, being able to say, hey, look, something's wrong. I shouldn't be thinking and feeling this way. Help. Did you get to that place? Did you ever get to the place where you actually did start sharing it with anybody and started reaching out and saying, look, I'm fucked up. Like I need to fix whatever.
Nope. I never really, it's funny when you
do understand that's miraculous, right?
Absolutely. And that's why
truly.
I was always really kind of blown away by the fact that it got that bad. And then all of a sudden it wasn't that bad. And I don't really remember when the change over happened, because I know right around the time that I gave it up and I abandoned that idea was right around the time that I found out about the job, the new opportunity, in the school district.
Right.
And so, I could probably correlate them together and think that, well, that was it. There was a way out now. I found a relief from the bad situation that I was in.
Right.
But, whenever you tell people that you're sick, their demeanor changes towards you. You ask anyone that's ever had cancer, that has had any kind of an incurable disease, when they let people know about that, suddenly it's, oh, well, is there anything I can do for you? And that, raised brow, and they always look at you like this, that becomes their face to you every day. And my father-in-law, Leonard, had stomach cancer, and he lasted 9 months, and he had the surgery that he regretted. He's like, I wish I had never had that, because
right.
Yeah, I couldn't eat very well, and I knew my time was short. But after the surgery, he had a feeding tube, and he lasted 9 months in bed, and then he was out.
Yeah.
And I remember, it was just, he always had that people look at him like he was not healthy anymore, and I think that really made it to the point where he said, if I could do it all over again, I wouldn't have the surgery, and I would just go whenever my time was.
Right.
And so I just never really felt the need to share it. I think at one point I made a decision. You ask anybody that's going to end it, a lot of times the ones that are serious about it don't say anything about it at all.
Right.
They're just there one day and gone the next. And I think that was my intention at the time, but something got me out of it. And I never really felt the need to share it, because in maybe an arrogant way, I felt like I just solved it on my own, or, later on I realized who actually solved it. But
right.
When I was going through that, I didn't really think anything of it. I just didn't mention it. And, but now I can talk about it because I was blessed that I was able to beat it.
Truly though, I mean, just so you know, man, I fucking cannot imagine what would have happened if I would have got that phone call. I would have fucking lost my shit.
And I think that was me thinking a lot of that, like people that just wouldn't understand.
Yeah.
And that's where the pain transfer happens, because they'll never know it. Like the guitar player for Billy Joel, Russell Javers, he, when their bass player, Doug Stagmeyer, had killed himself, and Russell to this day just doesn't know how to deal with it. Like they were friends forever. And, they were in Billy Joel's band, and, from the 70s on up. And then Doug, when Billy decided to not have him as band members anymore, Doug just couldn't find work. He had a hard time coping with that, and he ended his life. And when Russell heard about that, even now, he just doesn't know what to do.
Man, if he'd only known, if he'd just suck it out for a little bit. In fact, a good friend of mine that's a photographer has been following around Lords of 52nd Street. And they're right down the road from me, and next month they're going to be playing here. Had he only known. I mean, because those guys now are making a killing. Dude, they've been touring nonstop. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants them to play. Because it's all the original guys, right? It's Canasta and all those guys from back then.
And you think what you gave up, and that's why, I think a lot of that stuff is just, nobody would understand, and I don't want to put anyone else through that.
And listen, you would have missed the biggest life events. I mean, besides just total tangent, but I mean, like, you and Aaron have been to like every Rush concert ever. I think.
Since 1989, right? Yeah.
And you probably would have missed the biggest reunion of all when, for the Exposure World Tour 2020. Of course,
yeah, man.
You wouldn't have been,
dude.
Not even.
That's happening, man. We just got to get Mike on board and we'll be all right.
He won't come down. So our guitarist, Mike, he's in Flagstaff and he's living, high on the hog, man. He's loving life up there and he won't do it. We
should go to him then.
Maybe
show up at his door with
just
drums and keyboards, and
you got it.
All right, brother, strap it on. Let's go. Show us the axe and let's go for it, man.
You said something that is so vital, and this is precisely why I'm doing this, because I really didn't reach out the right way. Right now, I understand too. When I was going through all my stuff and grabbing pistols and blah blah blah, I had just come out of a 11-year career in broadcasting, and I didn't say a word to anybody. Because that whole universe, at least my completely distorted belief was that everything has to be, kind of put on and, look fantastic, right? It's all going to be very slick and cool. So I never, ever, right, let on that anything was ever bothering me. And then spiraled out of control within a matter of months. I found myself totally abusing alcohol and threatening to come to the school, right, and do it in front of my kids and the whole 9 yards. Like, it was just horrible. But I think you hit it right on the head. There's a stigma, right, when people hear, ooh, you've got a problem. There is just automatic, whatever it is in us, we just have this, either it's an aversion or don't want to get too close from it, to it. So we kind of stay, standoffish, or ooh, there must be something really wrong with you, right? If it's, psychological disorders and that kind of thing. But I think especially for guys, right? Especially going through life and trying to navigate this thing and figuring out how to do it well. When all the cards are stacked against you. Usually. Right?
Yep.
You got to ask for help. I mean, at some point you do. I hope we're showing that it's okay to have a conversation. That's the bottom line.
Communication is everything, and that's like a lot of Amy and I's marital trouble that we would have over the years. We would talk it out, and that's communication was our big open thing. We knew if you talk it out, if you at least made the effort to help each other and get it out in the open, everything will be okay. It's when you shut off and you shut everything out and you don't open up, the people can't help you because you're not giving them all the information. That's why I am one of those really transparent people, and sometimes I'm too honest where it gets me in trouble. But it's better than not being honest with somebody. And and if I have to eat crow and make up, to help somebody, well, okay, I'll do that. But they're going to know where I stand all the time. And I think that needs to be, whether it's a wife, a husband, a friend, children, you've got to be open 100% with them about everything, because if you don't, they're going to get lost or be confused later on. And that's not really fair to them.
And maybe you don't know. Maybe you're completely freaking clueless that there's even anything wrong. Great. Turn around to your friends and say, what am I missing? Like, and I've actually done that with you guys in the, few first times that we met. I'm like, help me understand, like, what's the hell? On? Yeah. What am I doing? Exactly. What's wrong with me? Just be brutally honest right now and tell me what the hell's wrong with me so I can fix it. But you're right. And it doesn't, look, we're not talking about like touchy-feely and getting in touch with your feminine side and blah, blah, blah. And we need to be softer men and blah, blah, blah. It's not what we're talking about. We're talking about having a real, actual conversation, because here's the truth. I mean, if you told me that you were going through all that, I might tell you to just, suck it up, buttercup. Let's go. Right. Strap up. We got a race to run, man.
Let's go. Right. Yeah.
But at the same time, we're still going to have the conversation about, okay, well, what about counseling? Have you talked to anybody? Yes. Do you need, let me give you this book, right? There's at least one or two books that I know I would give you in a heartbeat and say, here, at least read this and try to get your mind right a little bit. And then let's invest in each other. I'll take you out for coffee. We're going to check in every day or every week, whatever it is. I don't care if I got to drive down to Tucson once a week, I'll do it.
Right.
And vice versa, because I know you would do that for me, but we never have the conversation. So how the hell are we supposed to get there? So that's the point.
Exactly.
That's the whole point of this, is to, hopefully let other guys know, like, it's okay to have a conversation, and it's okay to, we're going to call it being vulnerable, I guess, right?
Sure.
It's okay to expose yourself a little bit and be transparent, and hopefully get some.
And that's
feedback.
the difference. That's good, interesting that you say that. It's not that you are exposing yourself; you're just being transparent. Because you're right. For guys, especially the machismo men that you always come across, that they can't show any weakness, and any guy that cries is a pussy, and da. When you get those type of dudes, those are guys that will never admit that they have a problem.
Right.
Not until it's too late, or they have people that don't want to talk to them after that, or their own macho guys.
Precisely.
They're the only ones that they're friends with, so they're not going to do it.
Or they just wind up miserable and old. And,
yeah, absolutely.
And alone.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's funny because when I was going through those troubles, I didn't tell anybody about it. I mean, maybe I'm guilty of, eating my own words right now, where I didn't tell anybody. And was that a sign of weakness? I don't know. I think for me at the time, I had a solution. Most people that are in that dark place where they're going to end it, they have a solution. They're happy about it. All those years in prison, when I would take those training about that, to recognize it in inmates, when they started giving away their stuff, and they were happy all of a sudden, no longer been depressed, and you're thinking, dude, you need to watch this guy, because he's probably on the edge of knowing how he's going to solve his problem, because he's got the problem solved in his mind. Right. And that solution is just to end it. And so for people that are in that place, they're not going to seem depressed anymore because they have their answer. But yeah, if you are self-aware enough to be able to say, hey, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't be doing this. I need to talk to somebody. I think for me, it was prayer. Yeah. Talking to God about it and saying, this is what I need to, what's going on here? How can I get myself out of this? How can I work out my issue? And just asking him that basic question. And the answer was, he took away that desire for me to hurt a lot of other people. And here I am now. So
I think too, I don't own your experience, right? You don't own mine. Right. Neither one of us are going to, whatever we're going to decide to do is what we're going to decide to do. And there's nothing that either one of us can do to change that necessarily from the perspective of who owns the experience. But the truth is, I do have some responsibility though, right? And maybe not even responsibility, but I got to reach out, right? As a friend on a regular basis, just to check in. Right, with other guys. Maybe that's part of the lesson too, is that we do, because we know there's going to be those guys that they won't do it. They're not going to, right? They're never going to let their guard down. They're going to get more muscles and more tattoos and whatever else. And nothing against those guys, by the way. I keep bagging on guys that are, the muscles and the tattoos. Well, it's because I'm fat. I mean, you already know that's why. It's because I get fat like looking at a gallon of ice cream. So, but the truth is, we could do so much better. I know I could personally. That's the big lesson for me too. I know I could do so much better just checking in and saying, hey man, I've been thinking about it. Are you good? We were just talking about a good friend of ours that same thing. We might need to do the same thing. Like kind of check in and just, hey man, what's going on? Yep. Something's a little off. Right. So again, looking for those things, right? And we don't have to be necessarily trained, right, the way that you were professionally trained in the correctional system to be able to identify it. We know.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's instinctual, really, especially for somebody that you've been around for a long time. Like, if you've been friends with somebody 2, 3, 4 years, and you hang out with them all the time and everything's good, you're going to know when something's awry. Yeah. If there's not quite lined up right, you're going to know, man, what's, going on. And that's when you have to have the courage to say, hey, dude, man, what's going on? You've been kind of, quiet lately, and if that person gets real defensive, what the hell, man, you ask me, what do you care? Okay, then something's really up. Right. Because if they react that way, they're hiding something, or they just don't want to talk about it. 100%. And at least at that point, though, now something else is going on, you can go to the next level of monitoring. But yeah, you're right. It does take courage. It takes courage to ask somebody, hey man, what's really happening, and hopefully they trust you enough and love you enough to be able to say, hey, this is what's up, but always make sure that it's done in private. Never ask them that in a bar or like, at a restaurant,
Right.
Always ask them when you're home, or, hey man, come on over for some, wings and baseball, man, whatever. And they ask them then. And then that way, when they're in a private, safe environment where no one else knows but you and them, usually they're more open than they would be in public.
Sure. Of course. One or two resources. Is there anything that you've ever gotten your hands on and thought, oh man, this is it. This is fantastic. I think I already know what one of the answers is, but as far as like books, reading, that kind of thing, I don't know. Are you much of a reader these days?
No, I'm actually not. I'm more of a movie guy. It's kind of funny. A good case in point. I watched the Harry Potter movies first, and I read the books later. And I do that for one big reason: to put a face and a voice to the character. And I just use that as an example, but there are actually two books, and what's really funny is that there are very polar opposites of each other, but they help me in different ways. So I look at my scripture set, includes Holy Bible, Book of Mormon, Doctrine and Covenants, Pearl of Great Price. We call it a quad, and so it has it all in there. And I made a point to study the Book of Mormon as an investigator, and where I just read it cover to cover. And I think, as a church member, most Mormons will have read the Book of Mormon entirely, but just in chunks. Like they would never just read it like a book.
Right.
So I decided just to read it cover to cover, and just to do that. So that was one that really kind of helped me get out of that. And then another one was You're Making Me Hate You by Corey Taylor. Corey Taylor is the lead singer for Slipknot. And
that's awesome.
He wrote a book called, You're Making Me Hate You. And he in it talks about just how society pissed him off. And you're talking about, years of touring and different cities all over the world. And he would journal a lot of it. And actually there is a third one, Get in the Van by Henry Rollins. And that book showcased his years when he was the lead singer of Black Flag. And this was back in the 80s, where he started working at...
What's a Black Flag? I don't understand. What are you talking about?
Black Flag's like a hardcore punk band. Shut up. So anyway, we went from working at Baskin-Robbins to, going on tour with Black Flag literally overnight. And but what he did was he did a journal of every show, every, day on the road.
Are you serious?
Yep.
Oh, I had no clue, man. That's
so
awesome.
It's kind of like a travel log / journal. And but he goes into some dark places there too, where he was, sleeping in the back of the truck with the amps and the guitars and not really in a good place. And he would take his rage out on stage, and that made him a very formidable frontman for a punk band. And playing in these seedy basements, and everywhere else that punk bands played, and blood everywhere and people fighting and sweat and piss and everything else. And that really helped me understand. Just people in general aren't as bad as I thought they were, because they're all just like me. So it really kind of helped me work that out. And Corey Taylor's book did too. It was cool. Just him in the airport and being mad at moms, not changing their kids before they go on the plane and things like that. So, yeah.
Thanks for sharing those, man. We'll definitely link those up in the description down below, so that if anybody wants to grab those, from Amazon or wherever they can.
They're good. And the Book of Mormon's free, so you can just call the number. And
that's right. They'll just ship you one.
It is free.
That's awesome. Free. Thanks for clarifying that, too. I'll be honest. That was my recollection, by the way, from when you got married, was that there was something to the whole, like, Aaron and I and the other guys, we weren't True Bloods, or I don't know what they would call it. But that it was something along those lines that we couldn't have the ceremony in the temple. But thank you for clarifying.
That was myself.
That's interesting.
That was us. That wasn't you guys.
That's awesome.
Not at all.
Man, thank you so much for having this conversation with me. I want to do it again, because I think there's probably stuff that we just barely scratched. And of course, we go back. I mean, we've got 30 years. We could do that. We could just do story time every time.
Like podcast part 2.
Bore everybody with all of our almosts in life. But yeah, man, thanks so much. I appreciate
thank you. It's been an honor, man, doing this. I think this is a great project and direction that you're going with this, and I really think it's gonna do you good, man, in the future, because you definitely know how to make someone feel comfortable about opening up their life, and and I feel really good doing this because it really allows me to just put my story out there, and if someone wants to know me, here you go, man. It's an open book. I have nothing to hide, man. Ask me anything. It's all good.
Speaking of, are you good? Like, if somebody wants to message you on Facebook, are you into all that?
Absolutely.
Do you do the whole? Because you're on Facebook and stuff.
Yep.
So the piece that we didn't actually talk about, and this is, we'll kind of leave it because we've been kind of back and forth with the highs and the lows and stuff like that. These days, now you're the old guy in the school office. That is so funny to me.
I'm retired.
Because I remember, I don't know. Well, no, I guess you didn't go that far back, but Reynolds Elementary, it was Carroll. It was old.
Carroll Ader. Yep.
Stop. You know Carroll Ader?
My son went there. My son
that's
was
right.
Reynolds,
That's right.
and
You live in the neighborhood.
I was a school volunteer in his class for his whole kinder and part of his first grade.
Dude, she was there when I was there in first grade.
My mother-in-law, Bonnie Rexroth, was a teacher's aide at Reynolds. So we had like a family connection with that school.
That's
and Carol
funny.
Ader was in the office, yeah.
You're Carol.
I know, right?
You're Carol.
Retired and
That's
counting
awesome.
kids coming in, writing them in, tardy slips and, typing their name in.
As bad
But
as bad as we were in high school as a band, so we did a couple performances. I think our grand total, our grand profit, total income from the band was, I think, $25, if I'm not mistaken. Or was that 25 each?
Well, it was supposed to be $40 when we played a birthday party for a certain girl. We were supposed to get $40 from the dad, but he ended up stiffing us, and I think he ended up paying us like $25.
So we got $25.
$25 to split between the four of us.
That was good. I was good with that.
Yeah, that was righteous man McDonald's money, man, back then. So.
So our set was not very good. It was like a mix of we did what we call
Scorpion song, Rock You Like a Hurricane, and Johnny Be Good.
Johnny Be Good, and then some nursery rhyme thing that we came up with.
Medley.
It's horrible. It was so bad,
dude. But it was perfect because like my dad's tape player with like a dozen splitters coming out of that thing.
That was funny.
All of our instruments.
Oh yeah.
And, I had that big Neil Peart, drum set I'm trying to jam on, and it was
awesome.
It was just
so great.
Dude, I wouldn't trade that for all.
I wouldn't either. The truth is, I wouldn't either. Because it did actually do some other really cool things in life.
Yep.
But these days, speaking of, right? So 30 years later, fast forward, didn't really touch. You did or didn't touch music at all. I mean, you always kind of kept it like in your back pocket, right? But
I always played. I never stopped drumming. I would just play to music on headphones. I played a Rush. I played a Mr. Big or whatever band would happen to be on. I never stopped playing, so I always kept the skill there, which helped me later when I was invited to get back out into the music scene here in Tucson.
Which you're doing
me
now.
Being retired, that's right. Me being retired from the job allows me to have a lot more open time in the evenings and, doing all that. And it just allows me to have the freedom to do it. And I have the drive and the maturity to get out there and play and serve the song and be a good band member and not someone trying to steal the spotlight or do anything stupid like that. So it's been great.
What are you doing now?
Well, currently, I'm kind of a hired gun. I do work for bands that need a drummer. Usually it's friends though, but I have a really good friend, AJ Gonzalez. He I actually worked with him at the prison for a while, and but he is the guitar player and singer for AJ's Rockabilly Ruckus.
Billy Ruckus, yeah, man.
Yep, and I do we do the whole stand-up drumming thing, and he and I as a pair go out and we open for other bands at venues and just have a really great time doing that. And
you sing a little bit.
I do.
You sing some repeating vocals and things, some echoes.
Gang vocals, they call it. Yeah.
Like what?
So,
like what? Give me a
Stray Cat Strut. Where there's a part in there, where he. I think the line goes, it's right like the second verse, and basically it's like, hey, and that's kind of
that's it.
Like the background voice there.
So you just say, hey,
that's the part,
and then you're back to drumming.
That's the part, that I do. Yeah, there's no.
And then just back to drumming.
That's it. Yeah. So,
oh,
but yeah,
boy.
Me doing the.
Oh boy.
That's it. Me doing the standing up drumming thing.
That's awesome.
A la Slim Jim Phantom of Stray Cats. It gives a good visual thing.
It does.
Visual difference that a lot of bands don't do, and then so it just allows for a lot of freedom of movement and just something different, but it's really fun, and I've been blessed that I was shown how to stand up drumming without hurting myself. So, but it's been really fun. It's really given me a new purpose to practice more and just bring a joy that I really didn't have before. So
I've been to see you guys when you were a trio. So with the guitars and the whole 9 yards.
You've had the rare opportunity to see us in both incarnations. When I was playing with Dirty Dice, the rockabilly band, that's when I was sitting down then. And then when we did the Rockabilly Ruckus, we would play at the Five and Diner restaurant up there in Phoenix. And AJ and I were just the trio, just the duo then. And you got to see the whole show then.
It sounds really good.
Yeah,
it sounds really good.
It's good, man. It's really good.
Yeah. Man, I'm so excited for you. Getting to do that now. So you're gigging maybe a couple times a month or whatever it looks like. And when it's convenient, you get to come up here to Phoenix. I get to sit in and watch, again, I get to see you play.
Absolutely.
It's just so cool, man. It's just so you know, like it's as rewarding for me. I don't know why, it's a weird kind of a thing to be that proud of you, but
not really. Cause you were there with the humble musical beginnings, of exposure, and me, trying to be the next, Neil Peart and failing miserably at it, and then, but being patient and then all the way through to now, you can say, because you're doing music and, but you're on the other side of the booth and able to really make people sound great and show them how to sound good, and that's a gift that is not to be underrated.
No, I appreciate that, man. Thank you. But,
believe me.
But I'm just so excited for you, man. And you and Amy, 30 years later, who would have thunk it? Beat all the odds, dude. You've come through so much. Man, thank you so much for sharing that, that slice of your life with me and with the guys. And we'll see you at Arby's, I don't know, a couple weeks.
That's right.